Hello, my amazing listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so excited to share this story with you, one that's all about unexpected connections and the moments that can change everything. Sometimes the people who slip quietly into our lives have the most profound impact. For Janelle Thompson, a driven CEO, a late night encounter with an unassuming janitor will change everything, revealing hidden strength, an unexpected connection, and a choice that will test her heart and her role as a leader. The quiet of the night hung over Kingston's skyline, settling like a gentle blanket over the high-rise office buildings. At the top of one of these towers, a single light shone, illuminating the office of Janelle Thompson, CEO of a prominent Jamaican corporation. Known for her dedication, Janelle often worked late into the night, as she was tonight. But when she entered her office, something unexpected stopped her in her tracks. There, under the dim glow of her desk lamp, was a young man she hadn't seen before, a janitor, carefully polishing the glass surface of her desk. His movements were slow, deliberate, as if each motion held meaning. She watched him, intrigued by his focus, until he noticed her presence and quickly straightened, his hand lingering awkwardly over his cleaning supplies. "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom," he stammered, shifting uncomfortably under her gaze. His dark eyes, deep and warm, met hers for a fleeting second before he looked away. She sensed an unspoken tension, an intensity in his gaze that startled her, stirring something she hadn't felt in a long time. "I thought everyone had gone home," Janelle said, her tone softer than she'd intended. He seemed different from the usual cleaning staff. There was a calm dignity in his stance that set him apart. "I wanted to leave everything in perfect order," he replied quietly, a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Didn't expect anyone else to be here." She could have corrected him, told him that perfect order was hardly necessary for someone in his position, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she found herself watching him, drawn to the quiet strength he exuded. "You don't have to call me ma'am," she offered, her tone almost inviting him to bridge the gap between them. "It's Janelle." A moment of silence hung between them. He shifted slightly, gathering his supplies, nodding a quiet acknowledgement. But as he turned to leave, Janelle's eyes drifted to the edge of her desk, where a stack of papers lay, a mix of hospital bills and payment slips. She caught a name, Miss Joy Williamson, and there, in small, faint print, was the outstanding amount. Her heart stirred with a feeling she couldn't quite name, and a question formed in her mind. Who is this young man? Really? That night, Janelle couldn't shake the feeling of curiosity and something deeper. Back in her apartment, she sat in silence, her thoughts drifting back to Dwayne's quiet focus and that almost vulnerable expression in his eyes when she caught him off guard. "Why do I care?" she asked herself, surprised by the intensity of her own reaction. She felt a pang, remembering her own struggles, her own late nights by her mother's side in a hospital room. The next morning, Dwayne poured himself a cup of coffee in the break room, trying to shake the memory of the previous night. He could still feel Janelle's gaze, the warmth in her voice when she told him to call her by her name. "What are you doing, Dwayne?" He scolded himself, knowing it was foolish to even entertain such thoughts. "She's the CEO, I'm just a janitor." Just as he was lost in thought, Sheldon, an older janitor with a cynical grin and a love for idle chatter, strolled in, giving Dwayne a knowing look. "So," Sheldon began with a smirk, "you think the boss is watching you, huh? That's why you're scrubbing those corners like your life depends on it?" Dwayne forced a polite smile. "Just doing my best, that's all." Sheldon chuckled. "Let me give you some advice, young blood. Don't kill yourself working for people who don't even know your name. They don't care about us." He leaned in conspiratorially, his tone laced with resentment. As long as things look clean on the surface, that's all that matters. Dwayne didn't respond, though inside, a wave of stubborn determination rose. He thought of his mother, Miss Joy, lying in her hospital bed, and felt a renewed sense of purpose. His mother had taught him the value of hard work and integrity, and he'd carry that with him, no matter the job. Just then, he looked up and saw Janelle walking by. Their eyes met briefly, and an unspoken understanding seemed to pass between them. Both quickly looked away, but it was enough to leave Dwayne's mind circling around her for the rest of the day. Later that afternoon, Janelle found herself at her desk, her eyes drawn to the stack of bills she'd seen the night before. Curiosity getting to the better of her, she went to the HR office, pulling Dwayne's personnel file. As she read through his background, she felt a mix of surprise and admiration. Dwayne had a college degree and a background in finance, yet here he was, working as a janitor. Further down the page, she found the reason: his mother's illness. The memories hit her like a wave. Her own late nights by her mother's side, watching her fight a battle Janelle had been powerless to stop. She hadn't spoken about it in years, but somehow this young man's story broke through her carefully built walls. She closed the file, her heart pounding as she realized she wanted to know more about Dwayne. But why, she wondered, caught between her growing curiosity and her role as CEO. Janelle's phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. She glanced at the message but found her mind drifting back to Dwayne. Her hand paused, hovering over the file for a second longer before she finally closed it and sat back, feeling unsettled and unsure of her next steps. As Janelle closes Dwayne's file and sits back in her chair, she can't shake the feeling that there's more to this young man than meets the eye. A sense of curiosity and something deeper tugs at her, challenging her to go beyond the usual boundaries she's set for herself. Meanwhile, Dwayne, unaware of Janelle's growing interest, is drawn into an unexpected situation that brings him even closer to her. His devotion to his mother becomes his driving force, and he starts to wonder if his growing feelings for Janelle are an impossible dream or a risk worth taking. Janelle thought she knew her role, her boundaries, and her path. But after discovering Dwayne's hidden story, she finds herself at a crossroads. Should she reach out to him, risking her carefully maintained professionalism, or keep her distance, knowing the complications this could bring? And as for Dwayne, his dedication to his mother is about to lead him somewhere he never expected, toward Janelle herself. Stay tuned for part 2, where new connections will form, tensions will rise, and both Janelle and Dwayne will have to confront their own hearts. What do you think Janelle should do next? Follow her curiosity or stay focused on her career?